This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined this evening, past midnight again, with Shane McGuigan. How are you, Shane?
Good, thanks, Rob. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
I know how you are because you've just been in the car for the last 2 hours. Go on.
Yes, I have been in the car for the last 2 hours. Took a little trip over to Edinburgh with Josh Taylor this evening. Why do we do that?
Josh was doing his last little session. Also, Josh likes to stay at home for the last week of the last few days before the fight. You know, it's a luxury that we have within boxing in Scotland. So, you know, he likes the comforts of his home. So he's staying there, and we're the ones making the pilgrimage every day. So back and forth. Me and Joshy P took a train there yesterday. It took us an hour and 50 minutes or whatever it was. I think we got there was one that you could have got 4 stops, and then we got one that had about 22 stops in it. So it does help to know what you're doing, and we have no clue. But we're all in it to win it.
Didn't you get on the wrong train? He told me you got the wrong train.
Who said that? Josh?
Yeah.
Richard, or?
Yeah.
He has no clue what he's doing on a day-to-day basis. I don't know what he's talking about. He just goes along with the flow all the time. So, yeah, we don't want this interview to be one of those interviews. Do you know what I mean? Meaningless stuff. We want to get to some points. But yeah, no, we did get on the wrong train.
Okay, that's my cue to hurry up and ask some good questions. With Josh staying away from home, does that kind of change your process for fight week? Does that happen a lot? Is that something you've got experience with in the past?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's something that we've always done with Josh up here. You know, we're used to putting on events for him back in Edinburgh and Glasgow. We've tried to base him in his home, in sort of the Scottish, home for the last sort of part of his career. You know, he's only been pro 3 years, so yeah, it's something that we just got used to. We got used to doing it. Obviously, when you go away to like the likes of Georgia and Saudi Arabia, it's completely different for us. But you know, or if we go even to Manchester or something like that. But you know, some of the best camps we've had is when the fights have been in the likes of Wembley. Luke Campbell was he's got a flat just across the road from the gym. So before the Menday fight, he was sleeping in his own bed, enjoying the comforts of home. And now that we're up here, Josh Taylor's got that luxury to do it as well. So
How's he been in camp for this fight? He told me that he in the build-up to the VIKTOR POSTOL fight potentially didn't have his greatest camp for a variety of reasons. How's it been different this time round?
I think he's just I believe he's a new man in this camp. There's so much riding off the back of that. You know, it's a hard fight before going into this tournament. Something that we believed he should go in and do. You know, because we'd made the fight, and the WBSS came to us and said, "Look, we're interested in the winner of this fight entering the tournament." They also went to POSTOL separately, and then to us separately as well. So, and then it became like, okay, the winner gets the place, and they're a seed as well. So it was a lot riding off the back of it. Obviously, from Josh's standpoint, it's life-changing money. It's an opportunity to go into a tournament, and 10 to 12 months down the line, he goes in as a 13-0 prospect. And now, you know, if he comes away with it, he'll come away with 2 world title belts. In the space of 10 to 12 months, with money that's going to change his life forever. So that's going to affect your preparations. You know, he's also boxing a seasoned guy like in VIKTOR POSTOL that had not looked the best, but you know, obviously taking himself back to I think he trained in Russia, didn't he? Not Ukraine. He trained back to Russia to do his training camps, and came like with a new lease of life. You know, because obviously he knew what the win would mean. So you know, it was a tough fight for him, but one that's held him in great stead. He's going in there with his first 12 rounds under his belt, finished like a train in the last 4 to 5 rounds, swung the fight. You know, although the scorecards were wide, we obviously already reflected on that. But it made no one question the decision. You know, it was a complete clear win, and he dropped him and he was finished like a train. So for us, that was such a positive to take off the back of that win, you know, going into the tournament. So he's looked like a new man in camp. You know, he's got an air of confidence about him. I said he's got the likes of George Groves, who's been world champion, and you got the likes of Campbell and stuff in the gym. You've got people to bounce off that are top quality fighters, elite fighters, and you know, also they're in and around that world level as well, and they're all sort of not just from a training standpoint, it's almost from a mental standpoint. It's like, you know, you got to hold yourself like a world champion. You got to get the sparring partners in. You got to make sure that, you know, you don't give people too much respect. You don't show any weaknesses. You don't say anything, you know, in interviews that's going to give away weaknesses, because at the top level it's 3 or 4% that wins close fights, and you can't give anything away. And you know, Josh is starting to get that. But before, he's a little bit more temperamental. He kind of showed his frustration in sparring, or he sort of came out and yeah, I was just telling him today, there was a picture of him up on my timeline where he's got a Hara Davies around the throat, you know, and it's like at the weigh-in, these are the things that you can't let slip at the top level, because they'll capitalise on that nervous energy and burning it up, and that's something that he hasn't shown the whole way through this. He's just that's why I feel he's a changed man, and also he believes in his ability. He really does now. You know, he's always had not so much doubts. He's always just questioned it, you know, and now he knows he can take a shot from, you know, punches with small gloves on. He's been in there with punches. He's been in there with tricky guys. He's had to go and get people. He's had to go and figure people out that are tricky late on in fights as well. And he's ticked so many boxes in such a short space of time. And although he's always going to be touted as a phenomenal fighter and a prospect, now he believes he's going to be a champion. So plus he won the Fighter of the Year.
With Josh winning Boxer of the Year or Fighter of the Year, you just mentioned that. I mean, he's not struck me initially, at least at the start of our kind of relationship, as somebody who places a great deal of emphasis on things like that. However, after he won it, when I did speak to him in the gym, he seemed very, very proud. Have you noticed kind of a more of a pep in his step? Has that given him a little bit of an extra boost in this camp?
Listen, everybody and every fighter wants to be recognised for the work that they do. I mean, it's a very rewarding job when you're winning, but then that rubs off real quick, and then you go into training camps and you're forgotten about, and 3 months preparing for hard fights, and you with nobody sort of checking in on you. So when he wins things like that, it's incredibly rewarding. Plus, he didn't expect to win it, so you know, because there was world champions in there. But if you look at the pedigree he's been in with, and also the way he's been winning these fights against former world champions, it was you know, they obviously, the people chose him as the victor. So it's lovely to have that reward, and you know, I do think it does. You know, it's kind of given him a little bit more confidence, and also he knows that he's a real fighter's fighter. You know, a lot of ex-boxers and a lot of pro boxers come up to me like, Josh Taylor's something special. You know what I mean? You'll get people that come up to saying AJ's amazing, but they're not real boxing fans, you know. And obviously AJ is a fantastic fighter, but if you look at what Taylor does, his hand defences, is the fact that he can take it to you and he can dismantle guys, and you know, he's only showing like a real fraction of what he's capable of. So, you know, for me, it's exciting. You know, obviously I had another fighter in there that was that was put up for the award, so it was a nice thing to have two of my fighters, in George and Josh, both nominated for that last sort of pick.
We go back to the POSTOL fight. I mean, fighting somebody like Viktor POSTOL in, I think, what was his 12th fight, 13th fight, having a win like that, I mean, how beneficial is that? Is it kind of yet to be proven? Is this going to be the fight that really sort of shows how big a result that was, given the fact they had to overcome adversity and defeat a elite level world fighter like Viktor POSTOL?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it so many different ways. You can look at it saying, well, it wasn't his best performance. Still won against a former world champion, a guy that's, you know, came in there to try and frustrate him and sort of, you know, getting the tire out and then push the pace. Whereas changed completely. It was completely opposite of that. He started pushing the pace late on in the fight. It also made people think like, oh, you know, he can be hurt. And there's people that can get a lot of confidence off that. And as soon as you start building confidence in a game plan that you believe is going to win against Josh Taylor, that's, you know, that's where he loves it. That's where, you know, we love it as well, because then people can sort of go, oh, I'm going to take it to him, or I'm going to go and do this, and I'm going to do that. And, you know, if I only have to hit him with a this shot or that shot, and because he's so quick, you know, people don't find it. People don't find those shots. They always get spooked by it. So yeah, I mean, like you can look at it so many ways. I think that, you know, there was a lot of sort of positives to take out of it, and also there's a lot of fact that people are going to take, you know, say, well, he can be beaten, or he can be frustrated, or he can do this, and we can do this and that to sort of beat him. But we'll see, because he's learnt so much from that fight, and that's why it was such an important fight before going into a tournament where he's going to get so many different styles. You know, Baranchek's just one, but Ryan Mart's completely different to Baranchek. You know, he's a guy that's he can mix it, he can go forward, he can go back. He's a real good all-rounder. You know what you're going to get with Baranchek, and then Prograis looked completely different to what we'd seen him in his previous fights. He boxed a little bit more against Flanagan, so it's a really entertaining tournament, and something that he needed those acid tests before getting into this tournament, because that's stands him in good stead before this, before it.
It seems like when we talk about Josh Taylor, I mean, much is made, rightly so, of his technical skill, the fact that he's, as you say, a fighter's fighter. But it seems like a lot of the time we talk about the mental side of Josh Taylor as a fighter. How much more developing or maturing do you think he needs to become? I mean, he's knocking on the, if he wins this, he challenges for a world title, but to push on and break through to that elite level.
So you're saying the mental side of it? I mean, you only really get that when when you've got the experience. You know, fighters, especially young fighters, are going to doubt themselves, even if they've got. I mean, look at Lomachenko, for instance. You know, done so much as an amateur, and he went into his second fight as a pro for a world title. And skill set, he's way better than Salido. But did he know when to push the pace in the fight? Did he know what to do on the inside when the referee wasn't breaking him up? And you know, that only comes from experience. And now obviously he's had that. He beat Salido 3 times. You know, he'd beat him in half the time and have another couple of fighters straight in afterwards. Do you know what I mean? He's, you know, so that's his experience, and that's something that we've gathered with Josh in a short space of time. So the mental side of the things is a lot more settled. He's got himself into a little flat. Responsibilities. A lot of people come out of the amateurs, and they, especially a GB setup, everything's there for them. You know, they've got the physios, they've got the strength trainers, they've got housing, they've got their mates around them. You know, Josh had a little bit of a change of dynamics with his stable mates moving out and some new guys coming in, and there's a lot of things, a lot of factors that in the past have now settled down, and obviously now he's got himself into a little flat, and he's had his missus come down quite a few times. His dad come down for this training camp, and you know, there's been a lot more home comforts for him. And I think a lot of the time fighters do need to feel settled. You know, it's such a stressful job. You know, and at the end of the day, you want to be able to come home and disconnect from it. You know, after, I mean, my fighters come in at 10. They'll do their first session. It's all scheduled, so their schedules are all different, but then they'll linger around, then they'll do the second session, because if they go home, you know, it's a bit of an effort to go home and then eat and then come back in later on. It's quite a chore to get back up off the couch and come back into the gym. So what they do is they'll do the first session, we'll all eat together, and then they'll linger around, play some table tennis or FIFA or something like that, wait for the next session, and then go home. But when they get home, they need to disconnect, and they need to be able to switch off, and you know, Josh in the past was either staying in hotels or he was staying at Airbnbs and stuff. Now he's got his own space. He's a lot more settled, and I feel like that's given us an extra 5-10%. It really has. And sparring partners that have been in the camp, in the previous camps, he's dismantling them. You know, he's got a new lease of life, and you know, they're jumping out after 4 or 5 rounds, whereas they would have done 8 before, and we've had to bring more sparring partners in. So everyone in camp has noticed a big difference in Josh, and especially the sparring partners are saying, God, he's so much sharper, and he's able to maintain it. Sometimes he might peak a little bit, then come back off, but that's all in his mind, and now his mind's got so much stronger that I'm excited.
Tell me about Ryan Martin as an opponent. Not somebody who's fantastically well known on these shores, somebody who I'm sure you're very familiar with at this point. What can you tell us about him as an opponent, and what are you expecting from him on Saturday night?
Well, I'm expecting an all-round, good boxer, a guy that knows his way around the ring. He's in a good camp. He's in there with a lot of good fighters, in Gassiev and Golovkin and in Big Bear. He's obviously just teamed up with Abel Sanchez in the last couple of fights, but from what I gather, he's been with Tom Loeffler the whole time. He's been up training there and sparring, and maybe it was that Abel was always doing some work with him, but didn't have the time to take him on fully. He's a really good fighter. He's a good all-rounder. He does nothing special, but does everything really well. And sometimes those are the guys that are tough to crack, and because once you hit them with a couple of good shots, they're skilled and well-rounded enough to be able to adapt. And I think that he will be able to adapt. And I think it will be a distance fight. It's big even for a light welterweight. He's big for the weight. Seeing him today, he's in fantastic shape. There's not many guys that are in the world that are much bigger than Josh Taylor at 140, and he's equally the same size. Works the body quite well. He got good left hook to the body, and he does some nice stuff. But he hasn't been in there with a real speedy hard puncher southpaw like Josh Taylor. So how he's gonna be able to deal with that, I don't know. He's Prescott was his last fight. He's standing and having a go a little bit more. Maybe he's trying to be a bit more entertaining, but I think now he knows that this is about winning. It's not necessarily about entertaining this tournament. It's about winning every single round and making sure that you get to the final. So be interesting to see what he comes out with. But I've watched a lot of tape of him, and I think we've got a couple of things that we've got up our sleeves and a couple of moves and shots that I believe are going to work on him, and it's up to Josh Taylor to really execute that. But Josh is one of these fighters that you can get in there and suss people out pretty quickly. So it's going to be a good fight. But I just feel that Josh's pressure and inside work, once he gets you to stand with him, he's going to be able to pick him apart and come out victorious.
You mentioned that he looks big at the weight when you saw him today at the workout. You're somebody who always strikes me as very observant. What can you take from fight weeks? Not just necessarily this week, but in general. What kind of things do you look for as a trainer to potentially give yourself an advantage or give yourself an insight into the other camp?
Necessarily, I'm not looking for advantages at this point. It's fight week. If you're looking for advantages, you have underprepared. And I know you didn't mean it that way, but some people do look for advantages that way. I believe that the training camp and the sparring partners and the way we've prepared, there's no 140-pound fighter out there that can beat him, and that's a great place to be in, for a trainer. Looking at Martin, he's definitely looks big for the weight. He looks happy, which is also it's double whammy. That those two things, big for the weight and happy. So it means he's confident, which is good. He sweated straight away when he started shadow boxing, which means he's reasonably hydrated. Looking at certain things that he does, but they're pretty professional people. Abel's not going to give anything away. They didn't hit any pads today. It's strange that we had the workout on a Thursday. It's normally on a Wednesday. We would have done a little bit of a tip on the pads if it had been on a Wednesday, but Thursday I had to save it, to make sure that Josh's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, he wants to punch something come Saturday, and if you do too much pad work, then he's just going to be burning out his goodness. So as I said, I'm not really looking for advantages. I'm just looking at the way he carries himself, and he's carrying himself really well. So they're quietly confident, and I think, but so are we.
You alluded to it there, the press conference and the workout being on different days or being swapped around, and also the weigh-in for World Boxing Super Series is 5 o'clock. How much of that, if any of it, impacts on your fight week, impacts on your preparation? What do you do to deal with that?
It's something that I've had to deal with George in the Jamie Cox fight, and the Eubank fight, and obviously in the Callum Smith fight. The weigh-in being later is a bit of a hindrance, not just to us, it's to all boxers. It means you got to hold your weight a little bit longer, and you have a less time to sort of fill up and rehydrate. But Josh isn't a guy that puts on huge amounts of weight anyway. He always is within striking distance. Even when he comes into camp, he's not heavy. He just changes shape, you know. And you know, like, we will do nothing different really, because he won't be taking off any weight on the day of the weigh, like tomorrow, obviously the day of weigh-in. So he's already on weight now. As I said, you know, he'll just have to hold it a little bit longer, but that's something that everyone's doing. It's not going to be a disadvantage to us or an advantage to someone else. It's all in the even playing field. But yeah, I mean, that's just the way they want to do it, and unfortunately, I don't believe it's the best way to do it. I think, you know, you need a good 36 hours to rehydrate and to fill up. But you know, Josh is, as I said, think about it, he's a young 27. There's no miles on the clock. He's a gym rat. He's always in the gym, so he's always in great shape. And you know, for us, that it's more like you get agitated when you're hungry and you just want to eat and get it over with. And the weigh-in, I mean, most boxers just look forward to the weigh-in. You know, just as soon as the weigh-in's gone, they go, great, I can eat and then I can relax now and I can enjoy this next process and then go in and box. So the fact that they're dragging that out is not ideal, but it's a level playing field for all of us.
You kind of mentioned that, and I've been around fighters enough times to know that when it does get to around weigh-in time, people do get a little bit shorter, a little bit crankier. When I was at the gym today, however, it was kind of nice to see your guys up close and personal when you've got a fighter trying to make weight. Now, your stable is always been a stable there's always a lot of laughs and jokes, always a lot of banter flying around. How important is that for Josh to kind of take his mind off that and to keep him relaxed when particularly he's got a later weigh-in than he's used to?
Is you got to pick and choose your battles, right? So, especially in our gym. You look at Josh and you think, I ain't going to give him too many digs today. But if it would have been yesterday, I'd have been keeping him honest and keeping him humble by ripping the hell out of him, and him vice versa to me. So you know, the fight week, as soon as you got to know your boundaries. But you know, he loves boxing. Like, he just loves it. You know, he'll be doing his little session to sort of take the last 2-3 pounds off, where he's doing a wee bit of skip or something, and he's just like, love this part. Whereas some people are like, they're hungry, they're tired, it's like, you got to keep your distance. So he's good on fight week. He's a good person to be around. Lee McGregor's, you know, he's come in the gym. We're ripping him today about the size of his head. So I mean, we tried to weigh his head today actually on the scales, but I don't think it didn't quite measure properly. But yeah, he's funny. The good thing is Luke was down and Campbell's up here to support him. CBS is up. Lee's there as well, so it just feels like it's another day. I mean, obviously the scenery is different, we're in another gym, but this banter's always the same, and we're just trying to keep his mind off it. And you know, because hunger's the worst thing for boxers. You know, they just think that, you know, obviously they're on a strict diet and stuff, especially the last week, to get that weight perfect. And yeah, the little bit of banter can waste a little bit of extra time. We ain't got no ping pong table up here, which is pretty of a disappointment. Got FIFA though, although I don't play it. I'm preoccupied doing other stuff. But you know, all those lads are firing away on the old FIFA as we speak right now.
Yeah, right now. Yeah, what is it? Yeah, just gone 1 o'clock. So I think Chris Billum Smith had. You mentioned Josh sort of loving this part of it as much as a fighter can love kind of stripping down the last few pounds. When is the change? When is the switch into fight mode? Some fighters it's when the bell goes. Some fighters it's the day before, or some fighters it's just after they've made weight. When is it for Josh? When do you start to really see him zero in on the fact that it's fight time?
Josh starts to zero in pretty much fight week. You can see it in him. He starts to, although he's he's approachable. Don't get me wrong, but his mind's on the job, very much on the job. I've worked with other fighters that just are super laid back. I mean, Campbell, for instance, we've got these little things called Aura rings, so OURA, and they measure your sleep and they measure your heart rate variability whilst you sleep. So it's a thing that I like to use to track their recovery and track their process, and it tells you how long it takes you to fall asleep. So the night before his weigh-in, it took him 6 minutes to fall asleep. And bearing in mind, I take about 21 minutes every single night to go to sleep. Like that's the average is 15 to 25 minutes or something. So it took him 6 minutes to fall asleep when he's hungry. And then before his actual fight against Mende, it took him 3 minutes to fall asleep. So he's obviously just not even thinking about what he's doing, the following day. Whereas Josh's mind's on it. He's a guy that's like gets himself in the zone, and everyone's completely different. Some people need a little bit of a rocket up the backside, and other people need a little bit of like don't want to talk about boxing around them because they'll start shadow boxing and and start thinking about it, and this is going to work and that's going to work. I can't wait to get in there, and that's when you can burn up lots of energy, unnecessary energy from too far out. So my dad obviously is loves boxing, so when he's around people he likes to talk about boxing, especially if it's fight week. So we try and make sure that with those fighters we just take him away from them, and then with the Campbells of this world we'll say, go on Dad, have a wee chat with him, just keep his mind, because I don't know if he actually knows that he's boxing tomorrow. You know what I mean? So that's that. I mean, that's everyone's different, but as I get to know my boxers more, to spend more time with them, very personable with all my fighters, so I know what sort of mindset they're in and what sort of buttons to push. So that's just a different approach to all of them.
Now you do have you have a stable of fighters that are all sort of in their own way quite similar, but with Josh Taylor and Luke Campbell, they are quite different as well in a lot of ways. Something I was speaking to your brother Jake about. I mean, what would you take from each person? Do you think they would say you could make a super fighter and you could use the ingredients of Luke Campbell and Josh Taylor? What would you pick from each one of them to complement the other?
Just Luke Campbell and Josh Taylor. Are you talking about super?
So you're making one fighter. Yeah, super southpaw.
We're going to make the super southpaw, and then we're going to make a super orthodox with the other fighters.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. Well, it's different because me and Luke were talking about this the other day. They're two southpaws. They're both two tall southpaws for the weight, but I train them completely differently because they've got completely different styles. Luke needs leverage. He likes leverage to generate his power. He likes to sort of tame you at that distance, whereas Josh likes to get in close. He likes to, slip his way in and work in close. So you've got to work to people's strengths, and you've also got to make sure that they're brushing up on their weaknesses as well. But I would say that. I mean, they both got great footwork. They both got great angles. Good balance. I'd use, Taylor's in close, middle distance to short range fight, and then Campbell's length and evasiveness at that distance and good footwork, and that would equate to Pernell Whitaker.
That's quite a southpaw.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Picking that back up, just had a little bit of disturbance in the hotel. Nothing serious. World Boxing Super Series, something that I've spoken to you about previously, something I actually spoke to Abel Sanchez about today when I interviewed him just over there in the blue corner. Red corner, sorry, beg your pardon. Second time around for both of you in the World Boxing Super Series. He told me that it was of benefit to him to have worked with Murat Gassiev throughout the first series. Is that something that you would share, given your experiences with George?
Yes, for sure, because it's different. It's a different system. They obviously, most fights are made, especially if you got a headline act, like you got an elite fighter, world champion or something, that the events are made around those two boxers, whereas this event an event in its own right, and the boxers are additional add-ons. With that being said, they choose the dates, and you have to say yes to those dates. So obviously with George, I don't know if Abel would have had something in the contract that there was a time period that he needed before, or adequate amount of time to prepare for a certain fight, whereas with George we had 8 weeks, and obviously we had that since that shoulder, so we needed to make sure we had 8 weeks of striking distance. But this tournament favours fresh fighters, young fighters, guys with that like to be in the gym all the time, and that's something that I've got with Josh Taylor. I called him a gym rat earlier. It's not a derogatory word. It's something that, you know, he's a guy that will be 2 weeks, a week after his fight, he's ringing me up asking when he can come back down, and even with no fight on the horizon, he wants to work on things. He's in love with boxing. He just loves it. He wants to improve himself, better himself as a human being. He still feels that he's developing as a boxer. So the fact that he's a young, fresh 27 with no miles on the clock and only had 13 fights, this tournament's going to really suit him. I know Ryan Martin's of that nature as well. So to be honest, Baranchek, young, fresh guy, not many fights. Progress, same thing. So Relic, he's got some, he's been in some hard camps, but I'm sure he's a bit of a disciplinarian. So it favours people that don't sort of leave the gym or blow up and down. So and that's something I've got with Josh. So it's a benefit definitely for us to have gone into this tournament and been in it, involved in it previously with George, and I'm sure with Abel. So. But we've got home support, something that we've asked for, and they've delivered. So they've been very, very helpful for us. And I'm just looking to get the ball rolling in this 140 pound WBSS.
How much of the rest of the tournament have you watched? I spoke to Josh, and he said that he hasn't watched any of it really, due to obviously focusing on Ryan Martin. I assume you're different in a sense of you have watched the rest of the tournament. What do you make of it so far, and particularly Prograis versus Relic, which is the semi-final?
Yeah, I mean it's I saw the Relic fight. I wasn't too impressed. Bit of a, I mean I would have thought Relic would have got him out of there, but he didn't. Prograis as well. I mean, he showed something different. I was actually pretty impressed with Regis Prograis. I mean, I thought he would have stopped Flanagan, but I thought he would have hit a lot more. He obviously dropped him in the 7th or 8th, I think it is, and when he went in to finish him, he got nailed with a good few shots and sort of got back to his boxing afterwards. And I think he's a guy that also probably went into this tournament wanting to pick up rounds before he had a strategic approach. He was the number 1 seed, so he looked at Terry Flanagan and thought, I could either fight Ryan Martin, and I know for a fact the two, Taylor and Prograis, both had a little incentive to pick a US or a UK fighter, because obviously we would have wanted a UK home show with Terry Flanagan, and we thought he would have wanted one with Ryan Martin, but he looked at it from a strategic point. He probably thought, got a European style. Flanagan's got a European style. He's a southpaw. Taylor's a southpaw. Everyone's looking at Josh Taylor and thinking he's going to get to the final. So Prograis looked at Flanagan and picked that as an option. So I have been watching the other tournament. I thought you get Baranchek was a fantastic fight. What an amazing fight. Obviously we're gonna get, that's Baranchek is the semi-finalist in our sort of route. It was actually starting to come on strong, but he got a thumb in the eye in the second round, and just the state of his eye was terrible. So the referee did the right decision. But Baranchek's tough, strong guy, got good work rate, but I believe he's got lots of faults that we can exploit. But got a tough route to the final for sure. And obviously Prograis versus Relic, I think that's not a walkover, it's not a write-off, so it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. But you know, you got to take one fight at a time. Just like every fighter has to take one round at a time. You know, from a coach, I've got to take one fight at a time, and we have our mind fully set on Ryan Martin, and this is just the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome. Since that, we got adequate time to look at Baranchek, prepare, and assess how we're going to strategically box him. But on Saturday night, this is our biggest hurdle to date, and we have to get over it.
Okay, well, just finally, if you will, won't be so brazen as to push you for a prediction, as I'm sure you will side with Josh Taylor, but just tell me, if you can, how you feel the fight will unfold, and if you want to put yourself out there for a prediction, please do. But how's it going to go on Saturday when Josh Taylor faces Ryan Martin?
I mean, I can't look into my crystal ball and give you a prediction. I'm not in control of that. It's like Muhammad Ali used to give predictions, and so did Naz and people like that, and they could actually go out there and execute. I'm sitting on the sidelines, but I believe that it's going to be a win for us no matter what. I keep saying it's going to be a distance fight. Do I believe that he has the power to knock out Ryan Martin? 100%. It all depends on how Ryan Martin strategically approaches this fight. Whether he wants to, take it to us, whether he wants to box, whether he really wants to, if he's down on the cards after 6-7 rounds, if he really wants to try and get that victory and believes in himself and come out there and try and push the fight late on. There's so many things there's so many different variables, but I know for sure that we're prepared for no matter what he brings. And I'm really confident, that we're going to get the job done on Saturday night, and and do it in fine fashion, whether that's on points or a stoppage.
Okay, well, Shane McGuigan, it is 10-2, so we will wrap it up there. As always, it's a pleasure sitting down and speaking with you. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social, and I will see you in the morning.
Thank you very much, Rob, and obviously Boxing Social always give me the best interviews.
There it is. Thanks very much.